let's dive into topic number one. As expected, kind of told y'all this was going to happen. Y'all didn't want to listen to me, and sure enough, it's one of those. My shirt does a great job. The last episode, my shirt told you, listen to me now, and then just believe me
later on.
Net star Kevin Durant was forced to leave the Brooklyn game against the Heat early in the first quarter with a left thigh contusion.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be reevaluated Monday, and they'll determine what's going on. If you've noticed, Kevin Durant has been dealing with injury after injury after injury. It's basically he's fallen apart ever since he had that Achilles tear 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the question we have to ask ourselves now is, can not only the Heat rely on Kevin Durant going into the playoffs, will he even be available?
Mm-hmm. Given that Kevin Durant hasn't ended a season healthy in 3 years, we'll say.
Yep.
No, you cannot depend on him. You would have been able to, I would say you would have been able to depend on Kevin Durant if he didn't, 2 months that he hasn't played?
Yeah, with the hamstring injury.
Before he came back from this and now he's out again. We don't know for how long. Hopefully it's a short time.
Right.
You can't depend on him. And if you can't depend on him, then you can't depend on your team. You can't depend on your team, then you can't depend on the possibility of you making it out of the East when you have at least maybe 1 to 2 teams who on paper, yes, you're better than, but who can push you and find a way to beat you if 1 to 2 of your stars miss games in the playoffs or aren't 100%. And that's my worry with Kevin Durant. Even if he does come back, he's not going to be 100%. What I mean by that is not so much 100% healthy, but 100% full tilt in the sense that he knows that he's got to be tentative with himself or they're going to have to restrict some of his minutes for that reason in order to try to preserve him. And in so doing, that can cost you a game or two because that's just the nature of, having to pull the reins back on Kevin Durant.
Right.
So to me, that would be my worry. I think with this, and I did see the injury with left thigh contusions. I don't know exactly how long people are typically out. You may have an idea of that.
No clue. I was trying to figure out the same thing. Like, what is a typical time frame for that in the NBA? I haven't seen anything.
But I think this is problematic.
Definitive.
I think this is problematic.
No, I agree with you. I mean, and the biggest problem I'm seeing with this is that the Nets' big three have only played 7 games together, and they've been together for longer than that, at least 20 games, if not 30. But they've only played 7 together. That's going to bleed over into the playoffs, where that chemistry is going to be needed in order to determine who's going to do what in the most critical moments of the season. I'm not backing down from my pick. They will be eliminated in the second round, only because, and I never said this because I don't think that the Nets can do it. I don't know who's going to be available to even play at that point. They have been showing us that not only are they not really healthy, but this compressed season is starting to really weigh on everybody. And we'll talk about this on the other side. But this whole year, this is like kind of like a lost year. Like I talked about this on my solo, and then that's the thing that really jumped out on me is how many players are really starting to get injured. And I saw a report not too long ago that it looks like some of the top stars are going to miss about 15% of the season, which is the second highest in NBA history. And I think it was Hoop Central that tweeted that out. That's scary. And then if you got to think about it to go along with that, this season being compressed, we've got the Olympics this summer, and you still got to try to start next season on time in order to get back to a normal cycle in which you do that. We won't get back to a normal year until maybe 2023. And if it's going to take that long for everyone to get healthy, we're going to miss out on a lot of basketball because you're going to have a ton of injuries. And what do you do if you have those injuries? Nothing. It's going to be there.
I mean, and it's like generally each championship team comes down to who's the healthiest.
Yep.
And
it's a game of attrition. 100%.
So it's almost like it's a double game of attrition in the sense that already in the NBA or any championship in any major professional sport in America, you usually the healthiest team, yes, the best teams, but usually the best healthiest team is the one that gets there. So now with this compressed season, it's really going to be about who can sort of limp their way to this title in a sense, because you look on the other side of that, the dream matchup that people have are the Brooklyn Nets against the Lakers in the finals. And you have these injuries with LeBron James, who might be back early May, and with Anthony Davis, who could be back sometime this week or next week.
Right.
But then you worry about their ability to be healthy leading up to the finals, because the playoffs by nature is a more grueling season
100%.
Yeah, it's much more physical. And that's, again, part of what I worry about with Kevin Durant, because I think you had talked last week. I think we were talking about, I can't remember who the player was. I think it was Kyrie Irving, in the sense that, with the N-word, once other players know what your weakness is, know how to get under your skin, they're going to use that against you. So now that other players in the East see how unhealthy, in a sense, or I hate to say brittle, but how injured Kevin Durant has been off and on this season, which means that they're not going to try to hurt him on purpose, really, but they're going to get much more physical with him, because they know he'll either be tentative or he can't handle it. And that, him missing a game or two or being out for a series, can swing the entire series, which can swing the entire championship.
That's a good point. And This is not good for Brooklyn.
This is terrible, because think about this. We asked, can you depend on Kevin Durant this season for the playoffs? And you can't. But you can't depend on the other two either.
No.
You can't depend on Kyrie Irving emotionally.
He enjoys PTO.
Yeah, he's using other people's PTO, right? You can't trust him.
He borrowed time from somebody else
without asking.
Oh, wow.
Right.
He's that guy.
They just look on their check stub and see that it's 40 hours less. Like, Kyrie. Hey, man, right? And
he ain't even there to even actually
up
for it. But
you have to wait till he comes back. You have to text him. And then James Harden, who is out right now with a hamstring, so we know how that can be. So the more and more I think about this, the more and more I'm starting to get upset with myself that I took this bet that they were going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I really feel like I've been hoodwinked and bamboozled by you. And you owe me an apology at some point.
Actually, I don't, because all the information was placed up front to you over like 5 weeks before we actually made said bet.
Also true.
I tried to tell you. I told everybody that listens to the show, the problem with the Nets is that we do not know who's going to be healthy. Now, if they can make it through, I'll put it like this. If they end up getting eliminated early and all of them just chill this summer, then next year I think the Nets will be a problem. Because at that point they'll be rested, their bodies will be better healed, especially if they don't do the Olympics. Brooklyn Nets, all 4 of your players, none of y'all need to do the Olympics. Just stay away from the Olympics. Focus on next season, because this season probably is going to be lost for you, just like it is for the rest of the league.
And I picked them to win next year. I didn't think that all this stuff that we're talking about was going to happen to this team, but I did pick them to win next year on the basis of it takes a little bit more than 1 year to build chemistry. I mean, LeBron's Miami Heat figured that out. That's a big part of the reason why they didn't win in the first season. So I'm still, with that though, I'm still feeling confident in my Clippers pick. They're playing some of the best basketball that nobody's talking about, which is exactly what they need.
Yeah, we're going to talk about playoff P, if he's actually going to show up come the playoffs.
That is a question mark, but still.
I like
what I see right now.
I'm glad you like what you see, bro.